Today I feel like wearing pink and we're gonna develop a blink. Hello and welcome to another Solana tutorial. In this video we're gonna talk about blockchain links. Again, this time doing a deep dive on them and actually, building one ourselves. We did discuss this in the previous video, which is on the other side. A high-level overview. Just in case you don't know what a blink is, you can watch that. But I'm assuming that most of the people, at least the Solana devs, know what blinks are by now, and they just want to learn how to develop their own one, or get better at developing their own one, because you might already have gone through a tutorial. If you like blinks, you might be a step ahead of me. But in this video, we're just gonna slowly develop our own blink and check out all of their features and see what things we can do with that. So it should be a fun one. I always like deep diving on new technology, and that's certainly a new thing. So here we are. Let's build a blink. Cool. We had a short look at this in the previous video, but just to recap, we're talking about actions and blinks. Actions, those are the things that you can do. Examples: do a swap, buy an NFT, purchase a domain, interact with a game item, vote on a proposal. All of those are actions. And usually they can be done within one transaction on Solana. With the current spec, one action can only ever be one transaction. So basically think of an action as a thing that a user might want to do and that can be packaged into a transaction. So Solana Actions really is this API on how transactions are built in order to be compliant to this standard or specification. Right, and then we have the blockchain links, the blinks. Those are basically an action packaged in a nice UI with some metadata like an image and a description and a title. And those can then easily be displayed on an external website like x.com, which is currently the only website that is supported, but more might be coming. And the whole point of a blink is basically to make an action shareable. Well, the action itself is already shareable, but make it nicely visible to the user as well. And all of that just with a link. And we're going to see the details in a second. Okay, so those are actions and blinks. Let's get started. There is an NPM package for Solana Actions. I guess we're just going to check that out. Build an API endpoint for the GET requests and create an API endpoint for the POST request. That's what we got to do. Check out this video tutorial. Oh, I should have watched that. You can also find the source code for an action in this repo. So Solana developers also have example code. I feel a bit redundant here. There is good documentation on this already, but I am gonna make my own video in any case, because in contrast to other tutorials, which are just 17 minutes in length, I'm really gonna do a deep dive and really see what issues we run into if we just go by the existing documentation. And that hopefully gives you valuable insights into when you build an action / a blink yourself, because you'll see the common errors. And I hope to also have a more in-depth look into what's possible with that. And when we want our actions in production, we need to have an actions JSON. We need to have the required cross-origin headers. And depending on how far we go today, I might go through this whole stuff in a separate video. We'll see. I don't want my video to be longer than an hour. Okay, I think maybe start with the technical overview before we get coding. You can think of actions as an API endpoint that will return metadata and something for a user to sign. So there are always those two steps. First, get me the metadata, and then get me the transaction, which we do with a POST request. And that's what the lifecycle looks like. We had a look at this already, but let's have a more in-depth look, or look with more understanding. Basically, what we are going to do when we build an action is we code this part, not the Solana blockchain, that's the validators, but this part. This is what we as the devs want to create when we want to enable users to use a blink. So we first need the actions, an action provider. We need to provide the action, right? The user asks, hey, what can I do here? We need to say, hey, this is what you can do here. That's what the action provider does. The action client That's the software that allows the communication to this action provider via the specified specification. For example, your wallets or your special extension that can handle actions. So that is your wallet. And then the user, you can think of that pretty much as the browser or the user sitting in front of the browser, or you could have, another layer here with the actual user who, does the mouse click that the browser then registers the link click, the click on that button, right? So basically I see this here as the browser and the user interacts with the browser. So we say user. Makes sense. Yeah. So what happens is the user scans a QR code, clicks a link or a button. That can also be just opening the Twitter feed, and in the Twitter feed there is a blink. That's already enough for the action client to make that GET request to get the metadata. And we then provide that metadata with a list of all possible actions that you can do here at this blink and show that in the browser. So the action client basically changes the UI for the user to have all the possible actions displayed and the metadata, the image and whatever. And then the user in his browser can again click, oh, I want to do this action, which then causes the action client to make this post request. We receive the post request and we now need to handle it and build the transaction. And then we return the transaction to the action client, which will then show it to the user, usually in the wallet directly. So it will pop up the wallet and let the user sign directly. It doesn't inject that into the host page like x.com anymore. It will just keep that in the wallet. It will basically do the simulation and everything as if the transaction would have been built natively by the site. So to the user, there is not really a difference. Although, yes, there is. The domain that the transaction comes from still is the domain of the action provider. So it's not x.com that provides this transaction. It's actually wherever the blink is hosted or the action is hosted, for security reasons, obviously, such that the wallet can make a choice. Is this domain whitelisted? Do we trust that or do we block it? Yeah, and then the user can decide whether to accept or reject the transaction. If it gets accepted, then as usual, the action client will just do the signing and sending of the transaction. And this can involve, your hardware wallet or whatever you usually sign with, and then it will be sent to the blockchain. This part here, it reaches the user, yes, but it doesn't go via the browser anymore. Those parts still go via the browser. So this whole thing being the browser is maybe also not super accurate, but being the user, yes, that's accurate. Okay, cool. That's the overview. So here it says that we can return some state or like disable actions if they're not possible. Sadly, we don't get the user pub key in here. We only get the pub key here, but we'll see this when we develop it. Don't want to go too much into detail yet. I think I said that even without reading it. Okay, moving on to blinks. Oh, client applications that support blinks simply detect action compatible URLs. So that's what I was talking about here. If X is loaded, the action is just if the user clicks a button or whatever. But if there is a blink on that page, then that's automatically parsed and returned with a standardized interface, which also means we can't really customize that interface really, because what we're returning is just, a list of actions where basically we say what the name is and where the link goes, but not like how it should look, where the buttons should be and additional styling or images. We can't do any of that, which for me personally is good because I don't want to be bothered with front-end development. But it's also bad because it's not customizable. And for some people, that's sad. For me, it's like, yeah, whatever, it's fine. Usually, if I would build a blink, it would look horrible if I had to design it myself. So I'm happy that it looks somewhat uniform and okay-ish. We will see how my blink looks, but yeah, moving on to the specification. The blink URL must contain a query parameter of action with the action URL. This value must be URL encoded to not conflict with any other protocol parameters. Yeah, obviously you can't have like question marks and things in there. That makes sense. Not all blink client applications will support all actions. The following example demonstrates a valid blink URL with an action value of Solana. Actions that are donate. Okay, so we go to the domain and the action is this. And this thing is just this whole thing URL encoded. So we see the HTTP // actions donate. Sharing an explicit action URL. So this again reminds me very much of Solana Pay. They also have those URLs with just Solana and then the URL. And now it's Solana-action and then that URL. Very similar. Again, this whole thing is very similar to Solana Pay. We first do a GET request to get the info, and then a POST request to get the transaction. And then we can sign it and send it, or choose not to. You can get around that if you link to a website that has an actions.json file in the root, like domain/actions.json, and that maps whatever URL to the API URL. So this is the URL that then serves the GET request, right? That returns the JSON. Because this might be a normal website, right? A normal, HTTP site, but you want to get that JSON, and you usually hide that behind an API. So that needs to be mapped somehow, and that's done in the actions.json. We'll have a look at that later, or in the next video if I'm slow, which I seem to be because I'm analyzing everything here. Yeah, we can have embedded actions as well, where we just specify the action directly. That's what we saw here. Those are the 3 ways how to do it. And if we do it in any of those ways, then the Blink supporting clients should be able to render the interface for the Blink. What we saw last time, that it automatically shows the Blink with the actions that it has available. For clients that do not support Blinks, there should be an underlying website. So it should be a regular link if it's not a Blink. If it's not interpreted as a Blink, it should just be a regular link getting you to that page where you can do the action, but possibly more complicated because you there need to connect your wallet and whatever, right? And find the right things to do. If the client supports Blinks, then it could all be done directly on that page, on the feeds page or whatever it is. That is not the actual website that creates the transaction. Once you are at that underlying website, you don't need Blinks anymore though, because you can then interact with a wallet as normal. Like if you build your own website, you don't want Blinks on your website because you can just send regular transactions, with the wallet adapter, just call the wallets. Blinks are really just helpful to let people interact with your site from another site. That's the whole point of a Blink, to make that action shareable somewhere else when they're not on your own website. So if a user taps anywhere on a client that is not the action button or a text field info, they should be taken to the underlying site. Okay, that's details that I also didn't know. Okay, fine. That's part of the spec. Okay, cool. Testing and verification. Who needs that? Some clients may operate on an allow list approach. It may require verification. Yeah, unfortunately, that is the case. Unfurling. This is such a weird word. That's the process of taking the link and displaying the nice Blink with metadata and stuff. Unfurling. Is that actually, I think that's used in normal web 2 as well. Make or become spread out. It is an actual word. Unfurl. I thought it's because there's URL in there that it's unfurling. But no, apparently unfurl is an actual English word. Great, never stop learning. Great. So to spread out, essentially, taking that link and spreading it out with like rolling out all the metadata, squeezing out all of the metadata that is in there. Like if I paste the YouTube link, then it squeezes out the thumbnail and the title of the video, and then I can click on that. That's the unfurling, URLing. Anyway, what was the sentence about? Yeah, basically that there is dialects actions registry and clients may operate on that allow list. Unfortunately, they do, or whatever, fortunately, they do operate on that allow list. And they only allow Blinks within X at the point of recording this video. On any other site than X, they just don't. But let's be honest, all of crypto is on Twitter anyway, right? All 75 of us. All Blinks will still render and allow for signing a dialect style to. So this is a helpful link because essentially it allows us to look at our Blink even though it is not live yet. Even though it wouldn't be registered as an official Blink, we would still see it at this site. So the dial to toe. Oh, this is bright. I don't like it. And I connect my wallet. We can use this for debugging later. So, dialects actions repository. Let's worry about that when we get there. I don't want to deal with this. This is already, just looking at this makes me go like, Specifications. Okay. Oh, wow. This is a really long document. I guess I need to split it into videos. So we've got the URL scheme, the options response, get request, get response, post request, post response. So that is all the parts that we need. First, how does the URL need to look for providing an action? Then this options response to an action URL just for the course headers. That's such a classic internet Web 2 thing. Cross origin response requests. What does it stand for? Cross origin resource sharing. That's it. Cross origin resource sharing. So basically, an origin is, the domain where it comes from. If it's from a different domain, it's a different origin. So we can specify in the HTTP headers what other domains we allow resources to come from. This is basically just a security thing because you don't want your site to allow resources from everywhere, although we might actually do that. But per default, the browser protects you unless the website itself says, yes, please allow from this other origin those resources, and we can specify the types of resources and whatever. And so basically just to do that check for those course headers, an HTTP option request is being sent to our action provider, and we need to respond with this options response where basically we say access control, allow origin of wildcard. So we basically allow anything. All action clients can safely pass course checks. And then the allowed methods, get, post, put, and options. So options, get, and post are obvious why we need that. Put, I'm not particularly sure, but it's also required. There was something that put is used for, but don't ask me what it was. So basically we're saying all those HTTP requests should be allowed. And then access control, allow headers, content type, authorization, content encoding, and accept encoding. For simplicity, developers should consider returning the same response and headers to options request as to their get response, because that makes it easier then. But it's enough to just return the headers in the options. For the get response, you will also want to return something more. We'll get there in a second. But we skipped the URL scheme, but that is pretty self-explanatory. We said Solana-action, double point, and then the link. And if we have parameters in the link, they must also be URL encoded. If we want to have different actions at the same domain, like if you send some sol, you want to specify how much sol you send or something like that. And you can put that as a parameter and you just also URL encode that. Pretty straightforward. Yeah. And then let's talk about those get requests and responses. So the get request, this is here, this part of the lifecycle, the get request. And it says already here, the request should not identify the wallet or user, which don't ask me why, but yeah, it should just always look the same. From a dev perspective, I actually don't like that. I would really like if I could at that point already be specific to a user and, serve them different actions based on the blockchain state. But I can't, because this should be just the same for every user. Fair enough, part of the spec, so that's how we do it. And then the client should make the request with accept encoding header, yeah, whatever. Interesting, then again, the get response, because that's what we will need to build at our endpoint, our application or server backed, whatever. We should respond with an HTTP OK, so HTTP code 200, JSON response, so that content will be JSON in the body, or an appropriate HTTP error like resource not available, 404 action not found, or internal server error, or whatever. And the client must then handle those errors, of course. We must set the right header, of course, and it should be of type JSON, application JSON, as you do in HTTP. That's one of the possible content types. Next to image, JPEG, or whatever, we have application data JSON, and the client should not cache the response. Okay, also makes sense. So it should that GET request should always be reissued anew, and the client should display the title and render the icon image. So title and icon is within the application JSON. So let's have a look at what else is here. So that's the specification of what should go into that body of what we sent back to that GET request. We sent the GET response body with the icon, which is a URL that represents this action. This URL must of course be accessible from the other website. So it shouldn't be a relative path at our server page, but an absolute path where you can access it from anywhere in the internet. Otherwise that icon will not show. The title, pretty self-explanatory. You give it a name, the description, a brief summary. You know, don't write like pages because nobody reads that anyway. A label, that's what's on the button that you click for the action. You can say if it is disabled, and then you can have several actions within the links. So that's an array of a linked action, which looks like follows with the href. So that's the URL for the action, as we saw earlier, you know, the thing that you put in here, something like that, with all the parameters and stuff. The label, again, because if there's several actions, then we'll have several buttons, so each of them should get a label. And the parameters, which themselves are parameter name, label, and if it's required. So you can request several parameters that you change, that the user can then basically input. Yeah, and we can say that this parameter is required or not. So all pretty simple. Alternatively, a non-fatal error message should be displayed. So if there is an error, we should give it a message why actions are not available or whatever. And that should then just be displayed to the user. It should not prevent the client from interpreting the action or displaying it to the user. Yeah, okay. If no links actions is provided, the client should render a single button with a label and make the post request with the same action URL as the initial GET request. Okay. And only if there are several links, then we use the specific links from that action, or from that linked action. Yeah, all pretty self-explanatory and straightforward in my eyes. So that's an example with several actions here with parameters. Cool. And then we get to the post request. So once the user decided to submit for an action, like click that button, a post request is sent. And the payload of this post request is always just the account with account and the actual public key of the user's wallet. Because if we want to build a transaction, then obviously we need to know who we built the transaction for, right? Because that guy then needs to sign. If I don't know who the user is, I can't specify that account. So I can't build a transaction. I mean, I could and use a placeholder, but then it wouldn't work if I pre-sign, right? If there are several signers, because I could have an action where my backend is also signing. That's fully legit. And then the user just partially signs. So I give him a partially signed transaction, and then the user provides the remaining signature and sends it. That's a valid use case. So anyway, the account is in the body of that post request, and all the parameters, they are still in the URL. So that's in the URL path. There we find all the parameters. Like here, if we specify a sol amount, then that amount is in the URL. So it's not part of the payload. And then the interesting part for us again, the post response, because that is what we will build again. Again, an HTTP OK with the JSON response in the payload, or an error. Again, content type, application JSON and whatever. And the body should look like this. So the payload, a transaction and an optional message. Wait, but if I realize that I can't do that action for the client, can I just give them a message? Or would that go via an error? There, I'm not sure what the specification wants me to do. Because I want the blink to just display that doesn't work, you've already voted or whatever. So I don't want to give you a transaction, but I want to give you a message, actually an error message. How would I do that? I'm not sure. That's still a bit unclear to me here, because I need to provide that transaction. Otherwise, I'm not compliant to the standard. So, and it is base 64 encoded. We need to encode it somehow to send it via text. We need to somehow make it to characters, and base 64 is more efficient than base 58. We're just using base 58 for that account here. There we use base 58 because that's what we're used to when we look at our Solana accounts. Pub keys, we always expect the base 58 address. But for the transaction, base 64 is the way to go. That's also how Solflare displays any transaction if you click to display the payload. And that's also what we need to build and put it in there and then send it to the action client, which will then deserialize it again. And the message is a UTF-8 string, so again, just, text. Or a thank you note. Oh, how nice. Yeah. Client and application should allow additional fields in the request body and response body, which may be added by future specification updates. The application may respond with a partially or fully signed transaction. You can return a fully signed transaction and then the user doesn't even need to sign it anymore? Why would I return a fully signed transaction? Or do you mean fully signed in the sense of it's not at all signed and providing the one user signature makes it fully signed? Maybe that's what they mean. Yeah, in any case, it would be weird if that transaction could be fully signed, because that would mean that the user is not a signer, or that our backend can sign for the user, which would be bad. So I'm expecting that by fully signed, they mean just one signature required. Whereas partially signed is several signatures required, but the others are provided. Only the one user signature is missing. Okay, anyway, response transaction. The transaction signatures are empty or the transaction has not been partially signed. Oh, this is again such a complicated thing, as also Solana Pay does it. So, in the case that the transaction signatures are empty or the transaction has not been partially signed, so in other words, there are no signatures, then the client must throw away the fee payer in the transaction and set the fee payer to the account in the request. The client must also ignore the recent block hash and set the recent block hash to the latest block hash. So basically, when we can, we must replace fee payer and recent block hash. The client must also serialize and deserialize the transaction before signing. This ensures consistent ordering of account keys. We also had that issue with Solana Pay. I remember this. Yes. So basically, if we can, we must, as the action client, fee pay ourselves. But if the transaction has been partially signed, then we obviously cannot, because that would change the message, which would change the signature that is already present, and that would essentially invalidate it. Therefore, we can't do that. So we must not alter fee payer or recent block hash, as it would invalidate any existing signatures, is what I'm saying. The client must verify existing signatures, and if they're invalid, the client must reject the transaction, which also makes perfect sense. If any signature except the signature for the account in the request is expected, the client must reject that. So again, if we're missing a signature for someone else than our wallet, we just throw it out. The one thing that is not super clear to me from reading this is must only sign the transaction with the account in the request, and must do so only if a signature for the account in the request is expected. So could I theoretically also return a transaction that is fully signed by other people? We gotta look at that. That text is just too confusing to me to get that. Not sure if that's specification compliant or not, because I would say it's not. It shouldn't be. If the backend can sign fully themselves, why don't they send the transaction themselves then? Why do I need to do that? That's just weird. So yeah, but I guess that's something to have a look at. Okay, anyway, moving on. Then we get to the actions JSON, but that I think I leave for next time because it is getting late, yo. My brain starts to smoke. I hope yours does too, or actually I hope it does. Let's cool it down a bit. With some great Austrian tap water. What was I saying? Yeah, let's get to some coding. I've spent an hour just analyzing this or reading the docs. Let's actually build a blink. But how do we do this? because what we will need to do is be able to have an endpoint for get and post. So somehow I need some kind of HTTP serving. So I can't just do that with a local script. I need an actual web server or something, or like a serverless solution or whatever. I mean, the easiest way is to just clone that source code, but that is boring because it's basically cheating. Everybody can clone the code of someone else and then be like, look, we built that thing, even though we didn't build that thing, it was already there. So I kind of want to do this from scratch somehow, and then only look at that source code if I'm stuck. Okay, what's the best way to do this? Next.js maybe? Should we go with a Solana deb scaffold? Yeah, let's go with a Solana deb scaffold, the classic deb scaffold. Because essentially we're building a deb, we just also letting it use blinks. We'll do that. Let's do that. So the classic npx create Solana deb version 3.0. Project name blinks. We're gonna go Next.js, we said, yes. Tailwind, yeah, whatever. We don't need a program. That's fine. Let's see. Ooh, it's taking long. Good luck with your project. Thank you. npm run dev. Okay, so run the dev. Run dev, run in our Blinks app. If we go to localhost, which I have never done. You kidding me? There we go, compiled. Then we should get, yes, this gm paste. Placeholder. It's not Solana anymore. Great. It doesn't come with the Solana logo, which is good. They removed that such that not every script kiddie works with a Solana logo like this guy. Yeah, that's the usual create Solana deb thingy that we know and love. Shout out to B-Man. But we actually don't need that at all. We don't. We're just interested in having an API that can serve us things like this hello thing here, which returns us, in this case, just some text. And that stuff is hiding in here in the app API hello route. Here it just gives a new response to hello from the API. And I could do a new response JSON with some data like message be hey there. Then it would look like this. We return an actual JSON. Actually, do we? Yeah, we actually return an application JSON. Looks like this. Weep. Cool. So the first part is gonna be relatively simple because the first part we need to do this here is just return such a get response with this thing here. So basically we have the type for this action get response. That type I think lives in this, we saw here, in this Solana actions npm package. So how about we add this, import from Solana, nope, Solana actions, action get response. Let no const my response is, let's type it to this action get response, and then we should get all of the things that it needs, like the icon, and then basically we can put the response here. So I'm just gonna copy this. No, not the link address, copy image address. I'm just gonna borrow this for a second here. Description. This is Solandy's demo blink. Label. Blink as a do blink. The people who watch Doctor Who know what I'm talking about. Don't blink! Title. Oh wait, hold on. The title is the do blink. And the label, that's what's on the button. Click me. Just so you know what this is about. What else? Disabled. I assume the default is false. Error. Oh, let's not do an error yet. Or actually, this blink is not implemented yet. And the links we don't provide. Okay. Oh, you expect a comma. That's what you do. Okay. What else? String is not assignable to action error. Oh yeah, right. You wanted this thing in a message. I remember. Cool. Good, and then we serve that as a response. Let's check. Boom. There you go. Prettier like this. That's what it returns. We can return from our local API. And that would be an almost valid GET request. except we're missing the CORS. Let's not worry about that until we get to the point where we fail because of it. So far, so good. I think I want to just get this to work. Okay, is the hello the route that I want to go? I'm gonna rename this to action, just for my own fun, so that I can have action here. Boom, there you go, same thing. All right, so that's the GET request partially. What do I do with this now? Do we first go to the post, or do we first try and get this to work? I think I want to first go to the post and then show you how to also find those requests, test that locally, because that's a bit more difficult than the GET request. For the GET request, I can just do this. So let's do the same with the post. Function GET. Can I just say export function post? Will that just do that thing then? I don't know how Next.js works, like for real. I have no freaking idea. What do I need to do here? An action post response with the transaction and the message not implemented yet. I don't know if I just want an error how I do that, but I guess that's my intuitive way how I would do it now. And then the same thing here, I just return this response as JSON just to see if that would work. Now I would like to do a post request, and that is more difficult because for GET, I can just go to my browser and, you know, do that. But a post is a bit more difficult to construct, especially if I also want, you know, to add payload. Because I don't quite know how, but somewhere in this request, there should be some body JSON parse request body. This is definitely not how you should do it, but I'm just trying now. uint8 array. Actually, I can Google this. Request.json. Ah, that's simple. Much more simple. Freaking simple as... There we go. Well, almost. Okay, cool. But we can say user pub key is post request account. And then just for us log the user pub key, or even write it in the message. Hello, user pub key. Good. But how do we serve this? Like, how do we test this now if that post thing works? I literally just created a function called post. I don't even know if that's how Next.js works, but I'm assuming if the GET works like that. So we gotta somehow post there, not just GET. We can GET with a browser. We can probably also post with a browser somehow. But I think it's easier to have it all here in Visual Studio. And for that, we're gonna get ourselves an extension that Nick recommended to me, or actually he used it when he was doing that workshop. Thunder client in VS Code. Okay, so extensions. Thunder client. Lightweight REST API client for VS Code. Let's do it. Seems safe. Usage. Install extension. Click Thunder client icon on the action bar. From sidebar, click new request to test API. Action. Oh, here. It's literally here now. Great. So let's do it. New request. I want it like this though. Okay. A GET request to our local 3000/API/action. Let's see. Oh no, wrong version. What that? Wait, just HTTP? Just HTTP. Okay. Should I change to HTTPS? Probably should. But nah, for now it's fine. So anyway, we basically now did the same as we did in the browser a few minutes ago. We are calling this thing and then it gives us this thing. So we're doing this thing and gives us this thing. But the cool thing is here I can just say, now make me a post request and do the same thing. And then we get an internet server error, which is great. But that will just be, it can't decode the thing probably. Unexpected end of JSON input, yeah. Because obviously this thing was never provided. There is no JSON. This thing will fail. And I should probably, catch that somehow and be nicer. But also it does return a correct HTTP error code. So actually I don't mind. And if somebody else just calls it like that, then I don't mind. So we now, no, we don't want to pass a parameter. We want to add a body JSON. Yeah, that sounds fine. And we're just going to say account my base 58 address. which is not actually an address, but for now we don't care. Bad string, that's how I need it. Okay, send. There we go. Hello, my base 58 address. Wonderful. Why are you peeking? Wonderful. And I could now, of course, put in a proper address here and then do that. Same thing. It will just give me the message hello with my own public key. So we see that the post request works. We can get the account out of this request. Actually, I want to call this request body, a bit more accurate. And yeah, I mean, so far so good. That's pretty much almost all that we need for a blink. We're almost specification compliant, except it's not a valid transaction. And also the main issue is still gonna be that part. But let's see if it is. Whoa, that's bright. Sorry, I should have given you a trigger warning. Trigger warning, bright light. And also pink colors. I'm a bit late with my trigger warnings today, but that's okay. We should be able to also just use the same link here and get our own blink. No, please check your code. Failed to fetch action from URL. Please check your code. Failed to fetch. Blocked by client. You don't see this, but it says blocked by client. Blocked by client. Okay, client. Can you not block stuff? Maybe that helps. Yes. No. Failed to fetch. Please check your code. But this time we got to the get. Haha. Look at this. Errors, 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 errors. We did get to the fetch from origin has been blocked by CORS. No access control origin. Yeah, there we go. That's the classic. Of course, we need to set the CORS headers. And I've learned by Nick, who did a nice workshop. Otherwise, I would have now set them manually because that's how I used to do it. But this thing has something with CORS headers, action CORS headers, which really is just all of that. It sets all those headers correctly. The allow headers should have all of that, and the content type is JSON. So all we got to do is put those actions CORS headers into our response. So how do I do that? Headers append. Oh no, not append. Well, no, that's not how I want to do it. Set. No, that's also not how I do it. I already have the name and value pairs. Okay, hold on. Can I just override this? It's read-only. Of course it's read-only. Forget that. Here I can add init headers. Wonderful. Those action CORS headers. What else is there? Status. Do I need that? I guess that's per default, so let's leave it out. So cool. And if I have those headers, let's see if that works better. Yeah. Yes. Look at this. The image is really not nicely displayed, but that's not too important. Do blink, yo! Solandy's demo blink. Click me! But the blink is not implemented yet. Click me! That's fine. That's fine. Whatever. The post that doesn't work is fine. No wallet selected even. Okay, hold on. Then let's connect the wallet with the blink. Click me. No, still error. Oh, the same thing with the CORS. Of course, we gotta do the same here and provide the headers, action CORS headers. And then failed to fetch still. All right, let's refresh. Failed. How did it fail? What did fail? Oh, I'm gonna just have this now. Reload me everything, click me. So no content. See, but it does do the option and the response to that was no content. This could be one of my issues. So when I click that it does an option, strict origin when cross origin on API action 204 no content. So access control request method post. So for post it requests options. Anyway, point is, before it even does the actual post request, it does an options request. You know, that part that we also ignored here. The action client may perform a pre-flight request. in order to check if the subsequent GET request to the action will pass the CORS check. And it seems to do that for the post, actually, not for the GET. Maybe it also did it for the GET, but then it ignored it. Not sure, actually. Yeah. No, wait, that's the actions JSON action. Oh, yeah, it did also do that for the GET. That's true. It did do it for the GET as well. But then when it did the GET, it said, okay. And now I'm basically just failing here. Let's see if I give you this option, if you then work. So basically, I could now implement the options for a request, which basically should just serve a new response. No body, but my action headers with all the CORS headers. So if I do that, maybe that will look different. Let's see. The pre-flight is still not happy, but the options now give me okay. And if I say click me, hey, then I get this blink is not implemented yet. That's further than we got earlier, right? Because now those actions, yeah, see, because the options here said okay, only then the post was sent. And now that the post was sent, I get this response. Wait, this blink is not implemented yet. Where does that come from? That's still the message. Hold on. Was that here all the time already? Yeah, that was already here all the time. But still, I do get this post through. And I do get the message with the hello. It's just that the transaction is not valid. So it will complain about that, obviously. That's fine. That's fine. Wow, I'm taking long for this, but that's also fine. So let's serve a transaction. Can't be too difficult, huh? And I would be like, let's use the new Web3.js, but also, but it would be good because eventually you will need to use the new Web3.js anyway. So might as well learn how to use that. Nah, let's not make the video too long. Let's do it the way we know how it works, because I have videos on that. Basically, we build a transaction, right? And for, you know, working with transactions in TypeScript, we have the npm Solana Web3.js. And then we can import from Solana Web3.js a transaction. The good old school legacy stuff. Just a new transaction. And all we do here is set the fee payer to our user pub key. Oh, it needs to be a pub key, of course. No, let me do that. And we're just gonna die if that doesn't work. Like if it's not a pub key, then you get another server error. I don't care. And then we serialize this transaction. And what that gives us is a buffer. And then we just need to get the string from that to string. And I think I can, yes, I can put the encoding here. So serial tx, and let's put that serial tx here. That's it. Just an empty transaction, just to have any transaction here. Let's try that again. Now, oh, now it failed. What's happening? Internal server error. What am I messing up? Why are you dying? Recent block hash required. You need a recent block hash to serialize? Really? I mean, the client is gonna overwrite that anyway. But fine. You know what I'm gonna do? There. That's your recent block hash. Me being like, just to make it work, lol. Because now, up, it still dies. Missing signature for pub key. Well, you should just serialize. Don't do so many checks when you serialize, damn it. Stop doing checks. Require all signatures? No. What else is there? Verify signatures? Holy, definitely not. Okay, but now. Ah? It's opening something. It's not particularly a nice or valid transaction, but it is opening that thing. Wait, am I on DevNet, on mainnet? Where am I operating right now? I actually have $400 on main. I'm freaking rich. Let's go to a hot wallet where I have less to lose. But anyway, try it again from here. Connect this wallet. Try it again from here. I mean, should I just confirm this and see what happens? We are fetching stuff from the Helios RPC. We don't get a response. Options, post, get signature status. So we're querying the status of this signature, which doesn't seem to go through, which, you know, fair enough. It also didn't simulate, so I guess that's about to be expected. Unable to confirm transaction. Okay. Yep. So let's maybe do a transaction that actually does something. I don't know. The classic example is always to send Sol around. So let's send Sol around. Because you definitely didn't build a Blink where you transfer Sol, right? Because there's no tutorials on this whatsoever yet. Let's do it anyway. Because essentially we can build any transaction that we want here. It's always just being serialized and then sent to the user. My question is just, do I mess something up in my post? Hold on, where is it? Here, the post payload, here it sends that, and then the response is that. So that's the transaction. Is that big enough? That's the transaction, right? It doesn't say much. It basically has an empty signature. It says, oh, it has like one signature or whatever. And then the empty signature, which we provide when we sign, and then it says, oh yeah, and by the way, the block hash is this, and then there are no instructions, and that's it. That's all that is, and it should allow me to send empty transactions. But maybe Phantom does not truly stick to the specification, and they're not replacing my block hash. That could be. Let's try that first. Before we put any instructions into our transaction, let's do an actual block hash by awaiting. Oh, now we need a connection. Connection, new connection. That's what it's called. Connection with quadruple N. And then we connection get recent. Oh, recent block hash. Oh, latest block hash. Latest block hash. With commitment finalized. There we go. Okay, so let's put a valid block hash in there, not just once, and see if that changes anything. Maybe reload a second. Let's see. Click me. It does actually change something. Ha! Phantom, you're not conforming to the spec, which nobody cares about because they all put in the correct block hashes, but you're not confirming to spec. Just saying. Or those docs are wrong, but there's a reason why I read through them, such that we understand what it's about. Where was that? There, says it clearly. If it's not been partially signed, the client must ignore the recent block hash and set the recent block hash to latest block hash, which seems like you don't do, because you are using my block hash, just saying. And I'm gonna just wait long enough that my block hash is not valid anymore. Only confirm this if you trust this website, and the website is this. Has it been a minute or two? Are you refreshing that? You're probably not refreshing that. If I confirm now, it's probably not gonna be valid anymore. What are you trying to confirm? Payload. This response is null. But we can try and confirm it ourselves. We can't. It won't be able to confirm this because the block hash has already been expired before we sent it. So let's refresh this. I don't want to wait for it to execute. So click again. And this time, sign right away. Boom. Now I would expect... There we go! Hello! Hot as my UID. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm not that I'm blaming Phantom or anything. I'm just observing what's happening here. Some specs are either not well defined or not being adhered to, which is fine, right? Those are just guidelines, as Jack Sparrow would say, right?
The code is more what you call guidelines than actual rules.
Okay, it wasn't actually Jack Sparrow, but I got the film correct at least. Anyway, right, guidelines. Okay, cool. But that seems to work. We can send an empty transaction. We don't get a signature, but we can find it here if we're devs. And this one actually was sent with the block hash that we provided. Probably, most likely. My hot ass. I mean, I can log it for you if you want. So if you want, I can do it again. Can I refresh that blink? Well, I guess I just reload the page. And I click and I confirm and we send another transaction. Boom. And we find the signature in here. And the block hash used was 9E9, which, let me guess, is the one that I provided. Because Phantom doesn't like rules and treats it like guidelines. Should I be shitting on Phantom? Maybe all of the wallets do it like that. Let's see. Wait, actually, maybe it's not even Phantom. Maybe it's Dialect. Send 0000 Sol because I pay a network fee. But it's nice that you just say I send, yeah, whatever, approve that. So backpack does not, here I guess I need to check in the wallet if something happened. Well, that's not working. Huh? Backpack has an issue getting stuff through. And solve there. Invalid transaction. The transaction provided by the deb is not properly formed and can't be signed. Interesting. Again, the differences we see between the wallets. Software be like, well, if you don't give me any instructions, I'm not giving you a chance to sign. Okay, fine. I'll give you an instruction. System program transfer from, and now I'm gonna make this another constant. Const, just gonna call this user. From the user to a new pub key, which I'm gonna take this address, whatevs, and the amount, no, Lampert's it's called, is 1, lol. Okay, and then we add that one instruction, and here we go again. Click me! Oh, you were not connected. Try that again. What? Where did software go? Oh, here it is. Okay, click me. There we go. Now that we have an instruction where we send literally to ourselves, I can sign. I can approve this, and there we go. Complete. And we can check. We use the block hash 9KNE, which is also the block hash that we used here. Okay, so it's not necessarily Phantom or software. I'm sorry for insulting you earlier. It is this dial.to that doesn't adhere to the spec, which fair enough, because that's supposed to be used for debugging and demo purposes. But hey, if you use it for debugging, it would be great if it would behave the way that the specification says that it should behave. Anyway, let's not get in, let's not overanalyze this. And finally look at the things that blinks can do. I mean, it's great because, okay, let's get rid of this. It's great that my blink here is displayed like that. I could use a nicer image, let's be honest. Maybe I should use a square image. That would also make it already much nicer because it wouldn't weirdly upscale it. But anyway, yeah, so again, I have no chance to change the display of this image. It's just, I can provide one image URL and that's it. It also tells me that this is not verified, of course, whatever. It's not registered, whatever. But that's what the blink looks like, with the title, the description, and then the label. Well, that's not the label anymore. That's the label. And the error, which actually this blink is implemented, so no more error. There we go. Yeah, this is not actually a blink by Phantom. This is a blink by dialect, and then uses the standard wallet to connect. Oh, and here we also see the action is Solana action on localhost. Nice. Where do we want to go next? Probably, yeah, having several actions. For that, we're just going to use the parameters with the action parameter array. Okay, cool. I'm already 2.5 hours in. We're not going to get to the deploying of the blink anymore, but I do want to have a look at having several things here. Okay, so what do we say? Parameters. What's with the types? Hey, why am I not getting correct types anymore? What's up with that? Oh, sorry, because we're using links. So, sorry, here. Links, that's what we need. An array of links, and that link can then have parameter. Okay, so we need links. Okay, sorry, my bad. And such a link can have actions. Wait, that's not what I expect. Oh yes, it is. Links, hold on. Links is not an array, but links has actions, and that is an array. Weird, okay, whatever. I guess they did it like that to allow improvements to the standards or additions to the standard, to the specification, because if we just had that, then I would just put the actions on top level, right? But there might be other kinds of links in the future for blinks, so that's how it is. Okay, so anyway. One of such an action has a link, the href, and the label, another action. And the href, without the click me, it goes directly. So first of all, let's do same action, and it would go directly to my request URL. I think that's then the same action. Let's try. So if I do that, yeah, that it now replaced the click me with the same action. Because we have actions here, this one is now being ignored. And if I want that same one, then I need to add it to the actions. And I think that should still work. I don't know, Phantom, could you do that? Yep. You would be sending one Lampert with, yeah, whatever. So that would be the same thing, right? Same action. And then I could add another action and go somewhere else. Like action is another, whatever. That, of course, we would need to treat when we do the post. So how do I do that? Okay, I gotta make it a URL. Fine. From that URL, I could get the search parameters. Action. So let's only add that instruction if action is another. You would probably code that cleaner, but quick and dirty. There you go, just so we see a difference. Let's try that. First of all, we should now see two buttons, same action and another action. So the same action should, as before, just do nothing, right? Just an empty transaction. Cool. And the another action should send that one Lampert to that other address. Wonderful. Also seems to work. And even in our backend, we should see we're now performing action another, because we specified here at the actions action another. Also, this could be done much cleaner. I just do a string concatenation, which is not the nicest way to do this. But what is a nice way to do it? I don't know. Am I a Next.js pro? No, I'm not. But I guess those things I can cheat and look up in this repo. Let's see, they also have a Next.js app. I don't know, transfer sol page. No, not the page. I'm not interested in the page. Actions, API actions, transfer sol, route. How do you do for the get? There you do, okay, you also do, yeah, okay, you do it with a URL and then you just add it. Okay, fine. But it's not that much different. I mean, he's using those nice, use this variable and add this, which makes sense. And he's using origin. That's actually a nicer way to do it, yeah. So same origin, but point to the API / actions. The URL also already points to API actions, but okay. Yeah, I mean, you can copy that code. You can, if you like that more, you know, use that, that's fine. Otherwise, it's pretty similar to what I did. Oh, that's also another thing that I could mention. What they're doing here is basically say options is the same as get. So basically I define the options as a function that does this thing, which is the same as the get. I personally prefer to have a slightly more code here and have this line such that the options just return that and don't do all the, you know, complicated things here. Especially if I would have something with a connection in here or something async that I would await in there, which they don't. But even so, you know, building that payload here, I think is unnecessary for the option. So I just let it return that empty thing. But you could also, like they do, just return the exact same thing. It's fine. That would also work. The important thing here is just to get the headers right. And they set it here. And more importantly, here. And they do some error catching, and then don't know if I prefer an unknown error occurred over my internal server error messages, but probably would be better to do a 400. It's the user's fault. It's not my fault as the server, but I'm too lazy to get that done. But yeah, if you would build a proper Blink, you do want to do that, I guess. Yeah, anyway, what else are they doing here? Validating query params. Yeah, otherwise it's not so different, right? They have a bit more actions. Oh, also they use parameters. Let's also do that. Let's also do one with a parameter. So we have the same action, we have another action, and we have an action with param. Again, I would probably also not use those. And now param is my action. And the actual parameter, there it gets interesting then. So hold on, that's an array. The name, the label, and if it's required. So the name give me your name. I don't know, your nickname, please. And the label for the button. Wait, hold on, label for what? Let me read up on that again. The label of a parameter is the placeholder text for the user input field. And the parameter name in the URL. Ah, okay, I understand. So the placeholder, that's what I would put as nickname. And the parameter in the URL, so additional to the action is param, there will be a nickname equals something. Or I could set it to param equals something. And then I would need to call this param, which my naming is shit, but doesn't matter. I hope you still get the idea. Let's make it required. And then here, the action and the param, check the param, and else if action is, you wouldn't do that ugly, but I do. We assume that we have a parameter, and what do we do with it? Okay, let's do it like that. That's stupid, but it will do. And if we don't have a parameter, or actually we can just, you know what? I'm just gonna die if I don't have a parameter, because that shouldn't happen, because it's a required parameter. And if I fail with 500 internal server error, then I fail with 500 internal server error, damn it. Yeah, and then I just say hello and name in a message that is never ever displayed anywhere. But, you know, whatever. It's just demo anyway. So, but yeah, let's try it. We should now have a third option. Yes, here, nickname, and it is required. Look at that. So, Andy, and I do with param, and then I don't see anything here because this here is all the same. But if I were to look at that here in the response, oh no, wait, action is param. It didn't put the parameter in there though. Where did it put the parameter? Hold on, maybe I need to manually do this. Do I want to cheat again? Let's cheat again. Let's cheat again like we did last summer. Yes, amount. Okay, so I actually need to code that in there, which makes sense because then it's more versatile. So as we said, for the GET request, we also want to have and param equals param. So, oh, this is confusing. So this thing is this thing, which is the nickname that the user inputs. Maybe I should call it differently because this is certainly not confusing whatsoever, right? So name param is what goes here. And then I can call that whatever. That just is the same as I then use here. Oh, here actually. And this is not confusing at all. And this is the same that I use here. So I could do action nickname and then nickname. And then the param is the name param. The name, that's that. Okay, let's try that. Refresh. Andy with param. There we go. Now Andy goes in here. Nice. And the response for that is the transaction and the message hello Andy. I could of course put the Andy somehow in a instruction in there if I were to do a memo instruction or whatever. But the goal of this video is not to teach you how to build transactions. The goal of this video is to analyze what blinks do and how blinks work. So I'm not gonna go too much into detail on, you know, building proper transactions. Although we should probably, if we wanna deploy something, build a proper blink. But I've already been recording for 3 hours. If I build a proper blink now, that will take some time. Did we analyze everything that we wanted to analyze though? Let's see what happens if I disable this blink, just for my own entertainment. What happens if I say, you are disabled? That's an insult. How does it look like? Okay, then it's just all grayed out and we can't. Probably I should then display a message as well, or an error to say something like this. Blink is not valid anymore. Yeah, okay, that's all that does, I guess. Bring it back. Nice, nice. Maybe a blink with 2 parameters. We haven't seen that before. I can say, you know, the classic would be the transfer amount, right? Name param, amount, param, amount. And then I could be like, amount is amount param. Then I would need to put in 2 things here. Oh, but then the other things disappear. That's interesting. So Andy and 10. Then I can do with param. But interestingly, now this blink is only displaying this one action, the one with param. So that's also good to know. I mean, those things you just find out by trying it out, because that's not in documentation. That I didn't read anything on that. I mean, where is the proper blink spec actually? Maybe it is in documentation, just not in this docs document. Is there a proper spec? Yeah, but okay, I guess those docs are all we get. If you have a more official spec for blinks, please let me know. But yeah, that's interesting, because it can't handle like several. So if we only do one, then it can have several again. Yeah. And can I have yet another action with yet another parameter? Another with param. Don't need that. I can also have another with param. Hi. Let's see how many we can do. Can I just add more? I'm now just playing around with blinks. No! The limit is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Apparently you gotta figure that out by just testing. However, if I remove the first 2 now, if I don't do those 2, do I get more then? Nope, still just 3. I can only do 3 with parameters. Okay, I add those. How many same actions can I have? Oh, same actions I can have quite a lot. Same actions, more. There is a limit though. So apparently we're limited to 1 if it has several parameters, 3 with 1 parameter, and what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 purely one-click actions. And again, just for my own entertainment or my own curiosity, if I don't have those now, if I remove those 3, then I still have just 10. Okay, removing the ones with parameters doesn't actually give me more. So that's the max we can do. 10 plus 3, 13 actions in one blink. At least in the way that dial.to renders them. And because the specification doesn't really say anything about that, at least I didn't find anything about that. So I'm assuming that Phantom and whatever would do the same in X, although I'm not sure, because I can't test that unless I have a registered action, which this clearly is not, because it will not get approved. It needs to do something proper, and it needs to have a proper domain and stuff. But that is a topic for a future video. Is building a proper blink also a topic for a future video, or should we build a proper blink? I do want to do other stuff today. Let's see, my own boundaries, a nicer video, my own boundaries, a nicer video. Difficult. Although, is it a nicer video? Would you gain something from me developing an even nicer blink here? I think I'm okay with just giving you the outline for how to build blinks, because now it's just changing how you build that transaction. In that post, how you build that transaction. That's regular TypeScript stuff that we're used to, right? You can do anything with a token program. You can do anything with any program, really. With your own program, if you want, just build a transaction that calls your own program, or whatever program you want, or whatever programs. You can have several instructions. You know, it's simple. That is not really Blink specific. It's just any transaction. The important part is just to serialize that transaction and send it out there. That's it. Yeah, I think I want to end, because with 3 hours of raw footage, the final video is gonna be at least an hour long already. Guess I want to stop here. Let me know in the comments what kind of blink you would want me to build. I can do another video just on building a proper blink, you know, with catching errors and sending proper transactions. My idea would be to do the fee redeemer. Bring the fee redeemer back. Yes, let's bring the fee redeemer back in the next video. I'm gonna create a blink that basically does what my fee redeemer used to do, which is close empty token accounts. Can't be so difficult. Make it a blink and then register that nice piece of code at the dialect registry and see how difficult it is to get it published, and see what we need to do with that actions JSON. We didn't get to look at that today, so I gotta do another video on blinks. It's just too big of a topic to learn it all in one day, to get it all in one video. But there are other videos that you can watch. Here's the first one that I made on blinks with the intro, and there will be another one soon. I don't promise, but I'm fairly certain I'll make one. Like this video if you enjoyed it. Make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss them, and follow me on X where I will post my blinks once they are live. Yeah, and with that, I'm gonna say goodbye. Good luck building your own blinks. Enjoy the dev experience of not having to write front-end code but just doing the API, which is how I like it. I actually like it. Yeah, play around with it, see what you find, and I'll see you next time. I'll be here.